Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a first look at an upcoming Tier 9 French premium light tank, the Erac 105 Proto. This tank's looking interesting, and we haven't had a French light added to the game since the EBR line, which obviously was very controversial. So what's this tank looking like? And you'll be pleased to know it doesn't have wheels, it has tracks, which is something new, I guess, for French light tanks that we've seen recently. So this tank is looking a little bit interesting, a little bit peculiar. It's very boxy. It looks pretty huge. So does it have the statistics to kind of mitigate this tank's quite obvious downside of being bloody huge? Well, let's get into it. It's going to have 320 alpha, which is pretty nice. That is going to be I believe, the joint best alpha at tier 9 for a light tank with the Chinese light, the WZ132A, which is pretty nice, I guess. Its penetration values are actually pretty good as well. 222 standard APCR is pretty nice. 270 heat is really nice as its gold. And we'll have a look at its HE because it's a light, so it tends to fight other lights. 420 alpha, 53 HE pen is not bad. That is pretty average, I guess, but this tank's definite party trick so far is looking like its gun with its alpha damage and pretty good penetration values. Interestingly, this tank has pretty poor APCR shell velocity and pretty poor, once again, heat shell velocity, so maybe not the best at sniping, but it's a light tank. You shouldn't really be sniping in it anyway, so kind of pretty irrelevant. Reload time, 10.7 seconds for 320 alpha will give this tank a pretty poor DPM, but we don't want to see light tanks with ridiculous DPM, so that's fine by me. Aim time, 1.9 seconds is really quite nice. That's pretty good, but once again, light, you're going to be playing up close and personal, so aim time is a little bit less relevant. Dispersion, 0.35 is not the greatest, but it's a light tank, so 0.35 is not terrible and will allow this tank to be able to utilize that alpha damage and good penetration, but not at medium to long range particularly well. It will feel pretty troll and will be a little bit unreliable at short to medium range. Gun depression, it's got -8 degrees. That's pretty nice. It's not terrible for a light tank. You'll be able to work some small undulations in the ground, and with this tank looking really tall and really quite boxy, maybe you'll be able to work some other ridge lines as well. Speed, mobility, pretty quick. 70 forwards. I believe this will be the quickest tier 9 light behind the EBR line, so that's kind of nice, I guess, but a general stereotype of French tanks is they are pretty quick, so nice to see this tank following that trend. 70 forwards, 23 reverses is really good, and it has really good power to weight ratios, so you're going to be getting up to speed quickly, maintaining that speed uphill and over most terrains. HP wise, 1300 is smack bang average, not particularly anything special there. But as you can see with the armor, definitely going to be boxy. Definitely going to be a HE magnet. With its thickest armor being frontally 20mm. Yeah. Tier 7 tanks are penning you with HE reliably. So definitely going to be something to watch out. Is most things are going to fire HE at you if you are spotted. So, going to kind of be hard to miss you as well by the looks of it, because it is so damn huge. And view range is looking pretty good, 390 meters, so you will be able to do the job of a light tank, as well as we've seen have a decent gun, so that's kind of nice. And interestingly, concealment is not the best, but that's predictable. 16% is not great, and remember that's stationary, but kind of predictable, I guess, with this tank's quite obvious downside of being bloody huge. But let's compare this tank to, as I previously mentioned, the WZ132A. Well, DPM, the WZ is winning here. 2,176 compared to 1,794 for the Erac. But they both have the same alphas. Both got, I believe, as I said, it's the joint top alphas, which is kind of nice. Dispersion, the Erac is winning here. One of the things which most people note with the WZ132A is it has the alpha, and the DPM, but it can't particularly utilize it because it's got really bad dispersion and really bad aim time, which you can see here the Erac 105 doesn't look to be suffering from. With the Erac having 0.35 dispersion compared to the 0.4 for the WZ, and having 1.9 seconds aim time compared to the WZ's 2.21. So this thing will be able to utilize its gun, and yes, it's got slightly less DPM, but to be able to utilize that DPM better than the WZ can, which is good. I think that's a good thing. Mobility-wise, the Erac is going to be quicker. Same reverse speed, 23, but forwards is going to be quicker by 6 kilometers an hour, 70 compared to 64. Gun depression, the Erac is winning it here again, -8 compared to -5 for the WZ. Going to be able to work some nice positions. HP has 50 more HP, which, once again, as I said, 1300 is pretty average, not particularly anything special. View range, identical, both got 390. Interestingly here, the Erac actually has more camo rating, even though it looks really, really big. But a general stereotype and trend with Chinese tanks is they don't have the best camo, even if they are quite small like the WZ is. But the difference is only 0.3%, so it's not the greatest difference in camo, but the Erac is winning marginally. And penetration-wise, the Erac has got the lead here again. Standard ammo-wise, they are pretty similar. 222 APCR for the Erac, 220 AP for the WZ, but in gold penetration, the Erac is clearly ahead here. 270mm of heat compared to 248mm of APCR for the WZ. Well, these statistics make the Erac definitely interesting. It's going to have a good gun, which is going to have decent gun handling. It's also going to be able to do the job of a light tank. So it's actually looking pretty good. However, there is a clear, I guess, balancing factor of this tank, which is its bloody size. It is huge. So it's looking, to me personally, like it's going to be a almost pseudo-light medium tank. I feel it definitely is going to be able to do the job of a light tank. However, it will be outspotted by other light tanks at tier 9. For example, the tier 9 British tech tree, whose name has just slipped my mind. If you are once again playing against tier 8 tanks, tier 8 light tanks will also outperform you, especially, for example, the ELC, the Senlac, for example. Just because this tank is so big, it is going to be hard to park in certain bushes, and your camo rating is just not going to be as good as those smaller tanks. So that is definitely going to be a rebalancing factor. And also, if this tank is spotted, it's going to be a HE magnet and going to be pretty hard to miss because it's just looking like a building. But its gun handling and its ability to still be able to be a light tank is definitely going to make it an interesting prospect. And I wouldn't be shocked if this tank isn't played similar to how you would play a medium tank if you were doing a spotting build. So you kind of play a little bit more passively than you would generally in a light tank. But you do that because you also have the gun handling, which light tanks don't have. So I can almost see this tank being played in that kind of fashion, and I don't think that's the worst thing. It's going to be maybe a little bit frustrating to get used to, and for players to get used to, that this tank just can't quite do the raw light tank role, but it will be able to be a good support tank with its gun handling. So trade-offs, isn't it, really? You trade a little bit of that raw spotting ability to gain a little bit more fighting performance. So going to be interesting when we do see this tank, if we ever do. Remember, these are all Supertest statistics, and this tank has only just entered the Supertest, so it's highly likely we're not going to see anything of this tank until 2025. And when we see this tank and how we see this tank, I don't quite know. To me, it's maybe looking a little bit like an auction-style tank. Maybe going to be through the black market, but I don't really know. We've not particularly seen, and we don't particularly see, light tanks come to the game very often, especially not premium light tanks. So when we see this tank, and when we're going to see this tank, and how we're going to see this tank, I don't particularly know, because there's not particularly a trend to follow. But do let me know down in the comments. Let's have think about when this tank is going to appear. And do let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll let you know mine. And yeah, if you did like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.